Good evening, everyone. I'm Bill Maley, Brighton Supervisor, and I'd like to welcome everybody here in the audience and also at home, whether you're streaming it on the internet or watching on TV, to the March 26, 2014 Brighton Town Board meeting. It's great to have you all here. The Town Board went into executive session tonight at 6:45 to discuss the employment of particular people. We came out of executive session at 7 o'clock, and now we will resume with the business portion of the meeting. In case of an emergency, you'll hear the town hall emergency alarm system. It will be activated. If you hear that, please exit the building immediately, either through the door to my right, turn right, go down the stairs and out the back entrance of town hall and away from the building, or through the double doors behind us in the rear of the building, out the front entrance to town hall, down the steps, and again away from the building. Doesn't happen very often, but occasionally we do experience technical difficulties with the live cable broadcast of this meeting. If you do experience difficulties watching that live broadcast, please contact Time Warner Cable at 756-5000. Again, that's 756-5000. And now I'd like to start the meeting with the pledge to the flag. I'd ask Town Board Member Louise Novros to lead us.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We would normally start with our open forum, but before that we do have two proclamations tonight. Both of these proclamations reflect that March is Women's History Month. And so for the first proclamation, I would like to invite Barbara Blaisdell to join me here at the podium.
It's not often I get to stand next to someone who's bigger than I am.
Well, I may be bigger than you are, Barbara, but you are truly a larger-than-life figure in this community. So it gives me great pleasure to recognize Women's History Month and also recognize your contribution to keeping all of our histories alive, as you do. Whereas the vision and determination of women in our community have played a significant role in the history of our town, our state, and our nation. And women have become leaders in the fields of business, government, law, science, medicine, arts, education, truly every field of endeavor. But whereas American women, our mothers and grandmothers, sisters and daughters, friends and co-workers have touched our lives with their compassion, strengthened our communities with their integrity, and blessed our children with their love. Whereas, since 1991, Brighton resident Barbara Blaisdell has portrayed in a historically accurate costumed manner the courageous and relentless champion for civil rights and for African Americans, Susan B. Anthony. And whereas 2014 being the town's bicentennial year, we celebrate 200 years of Brighton history, and during this time wish to honor all Brighton residents, male and female, past and present, who have made this community what it is today. And whereas the month of March having been declared National Women's History Month to recognize and celebrate women of character, courage, and commitment, who as educators, relief workers, mothers, business, and political leaders are determined through their life's work to inspire girls and women to achieve their full potential while encouraging boys and men to respect the diversity and depth of women's life experiences. And whereas the town of Brighton is home to many women who educate, inspire, empower, and shape the future by integrating women's distinctive history into the culture and history of our community and also the culture and history of the United States. Therefore, be it proclaimed that we, the Brighton Town Board, do hereby declare March 2014 as Women's History Month in the town of Brighton, and honor and express our utmost appreciation to Brighton resident Barbara Blaisdell for all she has done and all that I know you will continue to do to keep the spirit of our foremother, Susan B. Anthony, alive. And this proclamation is signed the 26th day of March, 2014, by myself and by the entire Brighton Town Board. I'll give you that, and I'll give you the microphone.
Well, thank you so much. I came into this because I was harassing the town to make sure they were going to give another proclamation for Women's History Month. And to my surprise, they then announced that they would be giving me one as well. And I was really shocked because, as Miss Anthony always said and did, it isn't about the person herself or myself. It's about the fight. It's about the work. It's about the task. And that's what I'll continue to do on behalf of the Susan B. Anthony House and on behalf of the memory of Miss Anthony. And I just someone suggested that I just give you a brief version of how this wonderful opportunity came to me. And it was that I was headhunted by the city school district in '91 from Rush Henrietta for a few years, came over there, and in February of one year, the principal at Jefferson Middle School asked that we all come in costume for someone in African American History Month. And being 6 foot and blonde, I was trying to figure out how I would do that. And then I remembered Miss Anthony. And I hadn't had much contact with the house or her history, but I knew about her. So I borrowed a costume from some good friends who are here tonight and looked up things in the library because we didn't have computers quite yet at the counselor stations, and spent the day being Miss Anthony and speaking to the children, and gained even more respect for teachers speaking and standing all day. And at the end of the day, the counseling head announced that it was time for all of us to picket central office because they were threatening some cuts, and I didn't have time to go home and change. So so in the spirit of Miss Anthony, because she was involved in everything, including labor, I went right down to central office and picketed. And then I was living in the 19th Ward, so I was coming home after that in the sort of dusk of evening, and I realized I was going past Madison Street, and I couldn't resist, so I turned on Madison. I like to say the car took a turn, you know, and I banged on the door and rang the doorbell, and Lori Barnum, who was the first director, opened the door and looked shocked, and I said, "Hi, I'm home," which I continue to think is my best line of all time. And indeed, truer words could not have been spoken, and I feel very close to the house, and you'll meet Deborah Hughes, our CEO and president, later, and I will continue to do this until they take me out toes up from Brighton, and I really thank you very much for remembering that I love to do this. Thank you very much.
Barbara, why don't you just stay here? Because we do have a second proclamation to give, and as you so eloquently talked about the Susan B. Anthony House, we do want to recognize the House, and we do want to recognize Deborah Hughes, the Executive Director. If you would join me. Truly a thorn between two roses. You know, this is, women's history is so important to the history of our whole nation, but the Susan B. Anthony House is so important, and Susan B. Anthony's legacy is so important to Brighton, but also to the Rochester community. I'm certainly proud to be a member of the House. It has captivated me from the first time I visited, however many years ago that was. Whenever anybody visits Rochester, obviously the two things that there's maybe three things they have to do. Obviously, you got to go to Wegmans, and you have to go to the Susan B. Anthony House, and as long as you're there, you're passing by Nick Tahoe's, and you might as well get a garbage plate, and then you've experienced three very famous connections to Rochester. But the Susan B. Anthony House is truly on anybody's list of the must-experience attractions of this community. So I'm very pleased to be able to give this proclamation. Whereas March is designated as National Women's History Month for all to remember, honor, and celebrate the many accomplishments of our nation's women. And whereas New Yorkers take a special pride in our historic connection to a group of women who vigorously fought for the rights of women, and in particular for their right to vote. Whereas Susan B. Anthony, born on February 15, 1820, who would later become a teacher and a leading figure in the abolitionist and women's voting right movement, partnering with Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who would eventually lead the National American Suffrage Association. Whereas on August 26, 1920, largely through Susan B. Anthony's tireless efforts and leadership, the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, granting women the right to vote, was signed into law. Whereas the Susan B. Anthony House, under the guiding leadership of Executive Director Deborah Hughes, keeps Susan B. Anthony's lifelong story alive and relevant by preserving and sharing Anthony's National Historic Landmark home, collecting artifacts and research materials directly related to her life and work, and making these resources available to the public through tours, publications, the internet, and interpretive programs. And whereas Women's History Month is a time to acknowledge and celebrate the contributions of all women and to increase awareness and understanding of issues of concern to women, and the Susan B. Anthony House integrates the distinctive history and work of Susan B. Anthony, not only in our community's history and culture, but into the history and culture of the United States. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that we, the Brighton Town Board, do hereby declare March of our bicentennial year 2014 as Women's History Month in the town of Brighton, and do pay special homage to the Susan B. Anthony House for their continued commitment to educate and share the story of the legendary American civil rights leader, Susan Brownell Anthony. Signed this 26th day of March 2014 by myself and by the entire town board. It's my pleasure to present this proclamation to you and to the Susan B. Anthony House.
Thank you so much. I know that when Susan B. Anthony reached her 80s and suddenly found that people were applauding her rather than throwing things at her or throwing her out of town, she would share that she had such a vision for democracy. She believed it was a partnership, and that those of you on the council who are leaders, those who represent us, have a tremendous burden and a tremendous honor, but that also we, as people in the community who are voters and who all should be active voters, have a tremendous responsibility as well to participate. She thought that we would be the best possible nation we could be when everyone would be engaged and involved and prepared to be a part of our democracy. I don't think we're quite where she hoped we'd be yet in terms of working together, but we are so much farther than we have ever been before. We commend you for your wonderful leadership, council members, and we commend the community, and we are grateful for this honor. We're a National Historic Landmark here in the Rochester area. The George Eastman House is the other one in Rochester. Of the 80,000 historic properties on the National Register, only the top 3% qualify for the National Historic Landmark status. You have to be the one place that either is where that person did their most significant work or where the particular event happened, like Gettysburg. Susan B. Anthony slept a lot of places. She actually lived some other places, and she spoke in many places. It's a great privilege that I have when I go to Washington or to Washington State, that people will come and tell me the story about the local people and the time that Susan B. Anthony was there with them. But here in Rochester, We have the house that she lived in for 40 of her most politically active years. It's the place she was arrested for daring to vote as a woman in 1872, and it was the national headquarters of the National American Woman Suffrage Association. We're thrilled that Susan B. Anthony is still a beacon to men and women around the world who long for a time when they can fully participate in a society with freedom and justice for all. Thank you so much.
We may not be all the way there, but we certainly would not be where we are without Susan B. Anthony. I just want to let everybody know that there will be an additional Women's History Month event as part of our Brighton 200 bicentennial celebration this Friday afternoon at 1:30 in the Brighton Memorial Library. Our town historian, Mary Jo Lanphier, will be speaking in the Learning Center. And I certainly encourage, obviously it's free, and I encourage everybody to come and hear Mary Jo, who just, if you've never heard Mary Jo speak, is such a font of important historic information, and she will be sharing that on the Women's History Month topic this Friday afternoon, 1:30 in the library. So hope to see a lot of you there. We'll now go to the open forum portion of the meeting. Now, as we always do, we start our meetings with the open forum, and we encourage people to ask questions or share comments during the open forum, whether or not they relate to a particular matter that's on our agenda tonight. So in a moment, we'll be asking for anybody here in the audience that would like to participate. If you are at home, you can also participate in the open forum by calling in. Please call 303-3060. That's 303-3060. Someone will take your call and relay it to us, and we'll try to answer. If you are deaf or if you're hearing impaired, we do have a TDD line, and the number of our TDD line is 784-5205. Again, our TDD line, 784-5205, for anyone deaf or hearing impaired that would like to call in during the open forum. We look forward to hearing from you with any questions or comments that you might have. Now, during the open forum period, as I mentioned, people can address the board about any matter, whether or not it's on the agenda. But if you are here for a public hearing, and tonight we do have a public hearing on the University of Rochester's supplemental draft generic environmental impact statement. If you are here to speak to that matter and would like your comments to be included in the record, please wait until we call that public hearing. We'll be doing it early in the agenda. And then you'll have a chance to have your comments on that on the record. But if you do wish to speak during the open forum, please wait until I recognize you. When you're recognized, come to the podium so that folks at home can hear you. I would ask that you give your name and address. Please direct your comments to the board and not to the audience. Please be courteous and try to keep your comments as concise as possible. And with that, we'll begin the open forum. Is there anyone that would like to address the town board tonight during the open forum? Yes, come on up, Jen.
Good evening. I'm Jen Wolfley, 2500 Elmwood Avenue. I first want to start off to the board members. Thank you for coming to the Brighton Volunteer Ambulance Annual Dinner. We appreciated your coming.
Thank you.
And we were happy to have you. And tonight I want to offer a community report all about the Mount Hope area, of all things. For the last year and a half, even though I'm a Brighton resident, I volunteered on the Mount Hope Association Committee. And the reason is because, as all of us are aware in Brighton, we're very fortunate to have various neighborhoods surrounding us. And so I volunteered, and I've been on several committees, and I'm very happy to report that in addition to a lot of shopping that will not be of competition to the existing retail in Brighton, there's going to be additional bus service. And for a very long time, this community has prided itself on being a walking community. We've also addressed the fact that we're an aging community. And there might be many people in the community at some point who don't wish to drive their cars, that would rather take the additional routes. And I've been talking to the Transit Authority. I think it's 6 additional routes each way to go down to Strong or any other kind of care facility, which I think will enhance everybody's opportunity for a better living rather than having to deal with traffic and cars and everything else as we become an aging population. And also, the other thing too is I think the sociability aspect is very important, because now so much of our shopping, which is very nice, we're able to go east of us, we're able to go obviously north and south to us, as well as enjoy the shopping that we have in the 12 Corner area, but now we're going to have a whole other plethora of shopping opportunities, like I say, that's not going to compete with what we have in current existence. So I'm just very excited to report that to the board.
Thank you. Thank you. And I couldn't agree more. Obviously, transit, bus transit is very important to us. Bill Carpenter, the executive director of the RGRTA, spoke to the monthly meeting of the Supervisors Association a couple of months ago, provided each one of us with a map listing all the bus stops on all the routes in our respective towns, showing ridership. The RGRTA is looking at a variety of things, as they do regularly, in terms of route enhancements. I understand they are also looking at some, maybe adjusting of the stops that they make, and that's something that they're going to be rolling out over the next year or two. We hope that Monroe Avenue in particular, but also our main bus thoroughfares in Brighton, will continue to be attractive, because I think you're right, increasing numbers of people would prefer to ride the bus or, of course, walk. We want to make sure that we have continued opportunities. For those of you that were able to attend the second open house for the Monroe Avenue GIGP project, our green infrastructure project on Monroe Avenue, saw some conceptual drawings of bus stop shelters that I think frankly were striking, and not only in their attractiveness and what they would do to enhance the appearance of the avenue, but also, that they, from a utilitarian point of view, they will give people some shelter from inclement weather. So I think the combination of additional amenities, additional routes, and you can't ignore the new transit facility that will be opening later this year downtown. I'm hoping that all of us will have an opportunity to take another look, particularly when we're going downtown, but also other routes to the hospital, as you mentioned, for example. And take another look at the availability of transit. And what I think you're going to find is that increasingly bus transit, which is very cost effective, still at $1, is going to continue to be a very attractive way for many of us to commute. So thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the board during our open forum? Bob.
I'll address with respect to U of R later, but based upon, my name is Robert Levine. I live on Crittenden Road in Brighton. With regard to this topic that you just discussed, do you have a link on the Brighton Town Hall where I could get on the computer and see the latest of the bus stops and where they go?
Bob, that's a good question. I know we do not on our webpage, but it's a great idea. Let me see if we can get that up. I don't know if those maps are on the RGRTA webpage, but let's see if we can get those up.
That's the only way we could take advantage of it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to address the board? Ray?
Good evening, Honorable Town Board. My name is Ray Tierney. I've been neglected to give my address at 820 Corwin Road. I'm the chair of the Bicentennial Committee, and I rise tonight to update a couple things, and I'll just, one of the rules the supervisor set out was that we address the board and not the public. Well, I'm going to break that rule. What I'd like to do is
First rule you've ever broken, Ray.
Right, that's right. The first thing I want to do is I want to just bring up something as it relates to history and Women's History Month. And that was, I was sitting here and I was thinking from the politics or the political side of what women have meant to the town of Brighton. Back in the 70s, and I'm not sure exactly of the dates, the first two women were elected to the Brighton Town Board. They were Marion Brown and Jean Hutchins. In the 90s, we got our first woman supervisor, elected in 1991, Sandra Frankel. Also, we got our first woman town justice. And I'm not sure, Bill, exactly what year that was, but it was late in the 90s that Karen Morris was elected to as a town justice. In the 2000s, or sometimes as I call them, the aughts, in aught 8, I believe it was, the first African-American woman was elected to the town board, and Sheila Gaddis. So I bring that up tonight just to look back at our past and our leaders in the town. That I'm proud to say that the role of women is alive and well, and it sits at the town board here today. And I served on the board for years with any number of elected women: Linda Goldstein, Bridget Shumway, Sherry Krause, and of course Sheila and Louise Navra. So I just wanted to pass that on to everybody. The other thing that I'd like to just talk briefly about is our first major event, and actually it's our birthday, the town reenactment of the first town board meeting is going to be held a week from Saturday. That's April 5th at the Stone Tolan House. And what I'd like to do is, people that are interested, you can find the information to make a reservation, and I'll explain what that means, the reservation in a minute. But you can go to our website and link through to Historic Brighton, or you can come in and buy and reserve your ticket right here at the Brighton Town Clerk's office. And thank you, Dan Amon, for that. Why reservations? Well, the event is one that is going to happen in a very limited space. The Stone Tolan House, if you've never been in it, is what you would think. It was built in 1814.
Actually, in 17, it was.
Our meeting, yeah, right, in 17. Yes, the oldest. It's the oldest residence in the county. In 1814 was the first town board meeting. And so what's going to happen is that we're going to shuttle people from the Baptist Temple on East Avenue, East and Clover, over to the site. And this is a reservation event just because we need to be able to accomplish that. There are 3 times, 11:30 a.m., 12:30 p.m., this is Saturday the 5th, and 1:30 p.m. The tickets are $12. Which will include a plowman's lunch, and I don't remember the particulars, but this is a lunch based upon historic foods, and it's being provided by Wegmans, and it's $6 per child. And there are spaces available. And I'm urging people to do it as soon as possible because it is limited. And again, those two places, go to the Brighton Town website and link to Historic Brighton, or stop in here at Brighton Town Hall and go to the town clerk's office. That's it. That's the update. This is the big one, folks. This is our birthday, and there's not many towns that can say that they can celebrate their 200th anniversary in the actual room that event happened 200 years ago. And so please take advantage of it. We want to fill those spots, and we've got a few left. And so please, let's help make that a great day. Next Saturday, a week from Saturday, April 5th. Thanks.
Just want to add real quick, Ray, if you're coming into the office, make sure you bring your checkbook because it is checks are going to Historic Brighton. So while we can normally accommodate many forms of payment, this needs to be a check. So.
I'd like to add something to what Ray said. Not only did we have all these women in power here, but we still have department heads. We have the assessor is a woman, Elaine Ainsworth. Our assistant to the supervisor is a woman, Mary Ann Husser. Director of finance is a woman, that's Suzanne Zaso. Our head of information technology is a woman, Sue Wentworth. And our historian is a woman.
And our recreation director.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not through. I'm making a whole list here. Director of Recreation, Rebecca Carter, and head of the information technology, Sue Wentworth. So, and historian, Mary Jo Lanphier. And so we are, that's why we have such a great town. And that's why it's run so well.
I'm glad that you did that, Louise, because I was worried about forgetting somebody, so I'll just add that did you mention the librarian?
And head of the Brighton Library, the best library in Monroe County, or the state of New York,
Jennifer
Reese Taggart. Can't get all these names. Yeah, she does a great job. And most of the librarians, too, are women. So.
Good. Happy birthday, town.
Thank you, Ray. And for those of you that might have been watching, or for those of you that are following us on Facebook or following Rachel Barnhart on Facebook, Ray and Arlene Vanderlind, and I think it's important to mention all the work that Arlene has done. Arlene is also a member of our Citizens Committee organizing our bicentennial activities. She's the immediate past president of Historic Brighton, and this event is a partnership between the town and Historic Brighton. But Ray and Arlene were interviewed by Rachel Barnhart, and I wasn't even able to watch the whole thing. 7 o'clock crept up on me, but thank you, Ray, and thank you, Arlene, for taking the time to get the word out. This is really going to be an exciting event. I'm looking forward to it. 70 and sunny, I have no doubt. 70 and sunny. So thank you, Ray. Anyone else that would like to address the board during the open forum, I would again note that if you're here to speak to the public hearing on the U of R's South Campus IPD project, we will be calling that public hearing shortly. If you would like your comments on the record for that, please wait until then. But if there is no one more wishing to speak during the open forum, then I will go into the rest of the agenda, and I ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio? Councilmember Warner?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. We'll now start with the public hearing. The public hearing is on the University of Rochester's supplemental draft generic environmental impact statement for the institutional plan development project, otherwise known as the South Campus project, which is located in Brighton. This is a public hearing under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQR. I suspect that the university will, in their presentation, give a little bit of the background of where this project has come because it has been discussed for a number of years. But under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, they have prepared the supplemental draft generic environmental impact statement that is the subject of this public hearing. Dan, legal notice has been given of this public hearing?
Yes, notice was printed in the February 27th edition of the Brighton Pittsburgh Post.
Thank you. I would also note that last Wednesday night, March 19th, there was a neighborhood meeting called by the university at the Alumni and Advancement Center. That was not a public hearing, but it was an opportunity that folks in the neighborhood had to hear a presentation on the project and ask questions. I would also note that although I anticipate that we will hold the public hearing tonight and probably close that public hearing at the end of the presentation this evening, that does not end your opportunity in this round of consideration of the project to give your opinions or make comments to the supplemental draft generic environmental impact statement. Written comments may be submitted until 5 p.m. on April 11, 2014. They should be submitted to the town clerk at, Dan, if you could give the email address for email submissions.
Daniel.aman, A-M-A-N, at townofbrighton.org.
Thank you. They can obviously also be submitted by mail, so long as they're postmarked on or before April 11th, or submitted to the clerk in person on or before 5 o'clock, April 11th, 2014. So with that, I hereby declare this public hearing to be open. And it's my understanding the university would like to make a brief presentation on their proposal before the formal public portion of the public hearing. So I will give the podium, I think, probably to Tom Greiner.
Thank you very much, Honorable Supervisor, Honorable Town Board, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tom Greiner, attorney at Nixon Peabody, here on behalf of the university. With me tonight are Jose Fernandez, head of planning at the university, James Wentworth, senior planner there, Dennis Kennelly, who is a principal of T.Y. Lin International Engineers on the project, and also Sarah Gilbert, who is also with T.Y. Lin International, is here this evening as well. As the supervisor said, this is a public hearing on the, and I'm just going to call it the supplemental environmental impact statement because it is kind of a long name. It's formally called a draft for a reason I'll get into in just a moment. But I just wanted to take the opportunity to say that although this is a public hearing, the law governing the environmental review of projects in the state of New York does not require this hearing. This hearing is courtesy of your town board, who always transparent and always expecting that there will be a lot of involvement by its citizens, has called the town, has called this hearing for the town board, and on behalf of the university, I'd like to say that we endorse that and we think it's a very good idea. As the supervisor said, written comments will be accepted through April 11. The public comment period started, I don't have the exact date, but it was several weeks ago. And just to let everyone know, if you don't know, what happens with the comments, they are collected. The ones in writing will be delivered to the university. Also, tonight's oral comments, the town has a court reporter who will take down a transcript of the comments tonight. They'll all be handed to the university and its consultants. The university will then put together and the reason this is called a draft that we're reviewing is the next document will be a final environmental impact statement. The university starts that by answering all of the comments that are submitted in writing or delivered orally, but it is actually the town's document. The town board is the seeker lead agency, and the final environmental impact statement will be the responsibility of the town board, and frankly owned by the town board, with assistance of its consultants, its staff, its whoever it wants, and also with the university as well. And I'll just say that it's a generic environmental impact statement as opposed to a site-specific impact statement, because if you followed this at all, and we're not quite at our bicentennial, but we're approaching, we're getting closer, the intention here by the university is, unlike many projects that people might be familiar with where somebody has an idea, they want to build something, and they go through a process. The plan here for the institutional plan development district, and of course the underlying action is that, the rezoning of about 180 acres to an institutional plan development district, is to plan for the future. So in that 180 acres, you will see tonight, and you've probably seen before if you've been here, you'll see little boxes that look like buildings. Those are conceptual. Of the dozens of buildings that are on the PowerPoint that you will see tonight, there are, of course, several buildings that are existing there, including the Center for Advancement and Alumni, which used to be called St. Agnes, the Laser Lab, Whipple Park. Those are existing, but the only building that is actually has any presence to it, that actually is a building that the university would build today if it could, you will see on the western side above, east of West Henrietta Road, south of East River Road, is a building. It's called the Imaging Building, and I'm sure Dennis Kennelly will point that out to you. So all the comments, all the responses, everything that, including the draft environmental impact statement that was done several years ago with its comments and responses, with the supplemental, its comments and responses, and any changes to the narrative, all that will be put together, and that's all really part of the final environmental impact statement. And with a couple things after that, the environmental process would be over, and then, and only then, would we begin to embark on the underlying action, which is our application that actually was filed in 2004 for the rezoning of that 180 acres to an institutional plan development district. That process will have its own series of public hearings and opportunities for public input as well. So with that, what I'd like to do is to turn this over to Dennis Kennelly and let him, without further ado, just get into the PowerPoint. And again, comments tonight, comments in writing, and we will respond to those in writing, give them to the town. So there won't be like a question and answer session tonight unless the town board directs any particular need or a request for an answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, and good evening. I'm going to briefly go through some slides here to give an overview of where we were, where we are, and hopefully where we're going. Just to orient, all the slides are oriented in the same direction. North is pointing up. Along the top of the page of each of the slides is the expressway and the canal. To the left, and well, first of all, this is the outline of the university property, the colored portion. To the left is the old railroad bed and town trail. To the southern, just below that little tip that's hanging down, is Crittenden Road, and then West Henrietta Road along the eastern portion. And again, this is just an image of a concept site plan relative to the university's master plan. So again, we'll give a brief background, some of the improvements that you see in the area that are already in place, a bit on the campus master plan, and then supplemental data that makes up the impact statement, and that's about it. So project background, back in 2000, the town adopted their comprehensive plan, which is when the rezoning process started for the university to become part of that zoning of what was intended to be zoning for their lands in the South Campus. Again, these images are the same orientation as the first slide. With the left is the picture of the comprehensive plan, and it was the intent of the comprehensive plan for the northern portion to be institutional, more university-oriented, and the southern portion would be low-density residential. Again, that's the comprehensive plan. On the right is the plan, the university's current master plan, which shows very similar land use, with the northern portion, the darker gray, being institutional buildings, the southern portion being residential in plan. On the right side of this southern portion is the existing Whipple Park. To the left are potential proposed buildings. This just shows the land use of the existing University South Campus, again with the existing buildings that Tom described, the laser lab to the right, the old St. Agnes to the left, with Whipple Park residential down in the southern portion. Up at the top of their lands is the university's building where they house campus planning, design, and construction management staff. This shows an overall picture of the campus. The left picture shows the university as it is now, the southern campus being down at the bottom of the page below the expressway line, with the Med Center and mid-campus in the middle, the river campus up to the top. On the right-hand side of the slide shows the master plan of the entire campus as it's envisioned now and in part being implemented, particularly up in the city portions around the Med Center and the river campus. So process to date, Tom went through some of this. We are asking for a rezoning. We've had public informational meetings. We prepared the draft impact statement. It's been reviewed and accepted by the town. There were public hearings back in '05. Then the university undertook their master plan efforts. So we took a break from the actual process until the master plan caught up, and then we came back to the town and prepared the supplemental impact statement based on the evolution of the plan. And we had an informational meeting last week, as the supervisor said, and here we are tonight at the next public hearing. Regarding area improvements, this is a picture of some of the road work that has taken place. That's Kendrick Road that you see slicing across from bottom left to upper right. Some of the roadway in this picture isn't complete, but as you know, it is now. The new ramp is in. The Kendrick Road on-ramp is under construction, as well as the next phase for the DOT up at East Henrietta Road and the expressway. And I just need to point out that the U of R was instrumental in having some of these roadway improvements come into reality. We worked very closely with the town, with the county, with the state DOT, the local political contingency to push to get some of this money back into the I-390 corridor. It's been a long-term process, and again, the university was instrumental in helping that to come into play. Again, this is the same orientation with north facing up. It just shows a picture of some of the roadway improvements. The roundabout is in. The university donated some land to the DOT to make way for some of the roadway improvements on East River Road. And also up at the top, just to the left of the Kendrick Road label, is the area of land that was transferred over to RG&E for the substation, and which is just above the existing Pure Waters pump station that has been there and has been recently renovated. The master plan update, this is a little dark, but it's an aerial of, again, the same orientation of the university as it is right now, the existing building shown. This is an image showing some of the recent work that's been done relative to the environmental studies. Some old growth habitat was discovered in the wooded areas along with some federal wetlands, basically blanketing the federal wetland areas that are shown over on the left-hand side. The blue areas are wetlands that have been delineated and mapped. That's not all open water. We just showed it blue for visual purposes. There is a section down in the southern end, which is New York State DEC wetland, where there is an open body of water that I'm sure many of you realize. But once these old growth areas were discovered, the university committed to maintaining those areas and not disturbing them to maintain a continuity in the habitat within the wooded areas, within the woodlot areas, and adjacent to the old growth areas. So the master plan was adjusted around those areas, as is shown on this slide here. Again, the dark green areas, or the brighter green areas actually, are the old growth areas, and it forms a nice, solid, continuous area along the western edge and up into the developed part of the university, as well as protecting the wetlands and the woodlots and I'm sorry, the old growth areas relative to planned new construction. This is a comparison of the plan as it was submitted back in 2004. As Tom mentioned, the picture on the left shows what was presented as a concept plan at that time, and it was all institutional with the retention of the residential Whipple Park. But it was, we heard loud and clear that the university listened to the comments received from the town and the residents about wanting more residential, less institutional, and that those comments were heard and respected. So therefore, the plan was changed to what is shown on the right, which, again, to reiterate, the southern portion along the Whipple Park Apartments is all intended for residential use, which is what is shown in the purple buildings, again, down in the southern half. And up in the northern half is proposed institutional, the orange buildings, which are surrounding some of the existing buildings. So the institutional plan in square footage has been reduced, and the residential square footage proposed has increased. This next slide, again, the upper portion is the institutional, the lower portion in the gray is all the residential. The colors are a bit hard to see, but what we're trying to show here is that the buildings closer, proposed buildings or future buildings down in the green zone along the residential area would be shorter, with a potential maximum of about 60 feet. The residential area down in the south would be a potential maximum of 50. The purple area, the central portion of the institutional area, up to 75 feet, and just the one lone parcel of land up next to Kendrick and the Expressway, potential up to 90. And these are requested maximums of potential future buildings. There are no buildings or no development planned adjacent to the new substation that's under construction. And this is a concept, same orientation of buildings, but it's a concept rendering of the same plan that's demonstrated to the town of some of the engineering that has gone into it. For instance, the town wanted us to ensure that there was enough room to do all the things we want to do and still have room for stormwater and green space and buffer zones and all of the other elements that are required as we go forward. So some of the environmental data that we've done, that's included in the supplemental. There's a comparison of the master plan to what the original plan was, and that was the side-by-side slide that I showed. The area of the proposed IPD has been reduced for the roadway improvements and also for the substation, so it's down from 188 acres to 180. I-390 on and off ramps at East River Road, those have been incorporated into the plan, and we've also prepared a draft ordinance of the rezone for the town's consideration and advancement as we go forward. Some of the technical things we've done, we've updated the wetland delineations and reports and have documented those. We've talked about the old growth habitat. We've done significant tree surveys and woodlot surveys. We've prepared proposed grading plans to demonstrate that we can actually potentially do some of this work, if not all of it, over the next 25 to 30 years. This is a long-range plan. This isn't, it'll happen building by building. We've done additional traffic analysis at the request of the town and their consultants to ensure that the projections from the traffic analysis we have completed is actually true. So we went out and recounted some intersections and compared those to the projections that we did in the past and found that the traffic volumes were actually less than what we had originally predicted, which is a good thing. It means we were conservative and the potential traffic volumes are in line with not only with what we studied, but what the county and the state and the town engineering consultants have also found. So we're all on the same page there. We're doing additional utility analysis, water, sewer, to make sure there's plenty of capacity or improvements that are needed would be the responsibility of the university going forward to support their future building plans. This is an incentive zoning application, so there were several amenities included in the original application, including a donation of about 43 acres of land south of Crittenden Road to the town of Brighton. Also planting enhancements along the buffer zones, particularly along the residential areas where there's a lot of nice existing vegetation and heavy tree lines and tree growth, but we're proposing supplementing those if there's a few bare spots, plant trees in there to further the buffer and enhance it over time. And then ensuring that there's no connection to Crittenden Road. There is that sliver of land that I pointed out earlier. There will be no traffic access onto Crittenden Road, but there will be emergency access adjacent to the trail into the South Campus, should that be necessary, and that's been coordinated with the town and emergency responders. As we got into the supplemental and the new work that's being done, and in response to, in coordination with town, there are several new amenities, and those are all related to stormwater features. One of them being some drainage around Whipple Park and some rerouting some of the existing drainage patterns to further protect the low-lying areas along Crittenden Road residents, and also outletting from the wetland area, which is part of our stormwater mitigation plan. Again, a little dark, but this just points to those proposed amenities. These three were from the original. The additional buffer, which is the long skinny line in green up at the top, the no connection, the circle in the middle, and the U of R land donation down in the south portion, the 43 acres south of Crittenden Road. These point out the locations of the newer amenities, one by Whipple Park and two along the Furlong Creek area adjacent to the trail. And these are close-ups of those same three that I just pointed. Currently, there's some drainage as part of a larger drainage area that flows from the Whipple Park parking lot area and building area and goes south toward Furlong Creek and contributes some of the drainage to that area. What we're proposing is to capture that drainage and direct it in the direction of those arrows toward the wetland area, avoiding some of that drainage from going down to Furlong Creek, which should help that situation. This is Crittenden Road. Down at the bottom is the road that you see, and then the trail up and down next to the blue squiggly arrow. There's currently a drainage swale there with a berm. We're proposing to raise that berm so that we can capture more of the stormwater drainage and direct it back to the wetland to avoid it from coming south toward the low-lying areas along Crittenden Road. The third, and this we worked out with the town engineers, is to have what I'm calling an emergency outlet and swale. That the drainage design for the area has to meet not only the state DEC requirements, but the town drainage criteria, which is even more strict, more stringent. So we have to, basically anything that gets built, we have to reduce the amount of drainage leaving the site from less than what it is today, pre-developed. So one of the things we're proposing to do in the long term, if there was a severe storm event, with an event that's probably, the probability of it happening is once every 100 years, we would have an emergency outlet, which is the red dot in the middle, and then slowly trickle the water out across the trail area, and then down a swale to Furlong Creek, and then out to Red Creek. And again, that would happen after the storm event is over. Basically, it would increase the size of the bathtub and slowly drain out over time, and again, helping to reduce some of the flooding conditions down in the south that happened at some time. And again, this is just the plan in concept form, and that's it. Anything I missed, Tom? Okay.
Thank you. I would now invite anyone in the audience that would like to comment on the public hearing. Please indicate. Bob, if you would again, please go to the podium and state your name and address, please, for the record.
My name is Robert Levine. I live at 1015 Crittenden Road, and I have near 6 acres of land, including my residence there. My concern is, especially with an environmental projection of what may happen, is not so much with regard to the trees and everything else that's being done as an amenity by the University of Rochester, but what the buildings may contain. Now, when you approve a building, a particular building, if U of R comes to you, and I'm not familiar with the process, so I'm both asking you and then I may make a comment with regard to that. What is the procedure if they're going to build a building? Could they build a building, a new building, and without you providing permission to do it?
Can they build a building without us providing permission to do it? No.
Okay. What I'm concerned with is what goes into the buildings. Now, the CDC is directly connected to a lot of hospitals.
Center for Disease Control, is that?
Centers for Disease Control. And a lot of research is going on with regard to germs and chemicals that could produce significant amount of morbidity and mortality. And some of it is classified as germ warfare. However you want to classify them, they are environmentally deadly or highly toxic with regard to human beings. So I'm not going to make the assumption that the U of R is going to be doing that kind of research right in this area. But if they do, I would like the town then to make a restriction that because a building now is up, that they cannot do any of that highly toxic type of work in that building without going through the town for approval. And what I'd like to show the town is I did a quick study on the internet, and my Google search box was U.S. laboratory released germs. U.S., meaning United States, laboratory released germs, and see what I came up with. And I have 3 articles here. One is labeled from October 2007, U.S. labs mishandling germs. And they go through the various kinds of problems that the laboratories that do this type of research have had problems with. Some laboratories, for example, ship containers that got misdirected and ended up in Belgium that contained the plague bacteria, according to this article. And they go through various cases. Now, I'm sure no one within the facilities that directed that transportation did it intentionally. but accidents do happen. And when you're dealing with the plague, and there was something on TV as I was leaving with regard to the Ebola virus in Africa that's now spreading, and the World Health Organization is having a rough time containing it, we know what can happen when we do not have solutions for these problems. Now, I have another article here that discusses, and this article is in October 2008, high security germ libs, not so high security. And they deal with the problem of individuals both working through the labs, and there was a case where an individual recently committed suicide that was accused of stealing certain types of chemicals that were being sent out to members of Congress. So these issues are front and center if that is occurring right nearby in the crowded area. That was 2008. Now we have a study, we have an article published March 25th, 2013, and again, the title of the article, Government Study Finds Security Risks at U.S. Biolabs Still Very High. The risk is still very high. And one of the instances of this article that caught my attention is, the report says that facilities called high containment labs are being built to local standards because there are no national safety guidelines for them. The study released Monday is a follow-up of a similar study done 5 years ago. So what this says is that the places that are building these highly toxic research efforts, and we have to have them being done in the United States, are not subject to enough rules and regulations that require them to build these things in a uniform kind of way, that it's up to the local, and I'm going to leave these articles here, and this is a 2013 article, that it's up to you people to somehow put, if the U of R wants to build a building, and even later on utilize the building for these highly toxic endeavors, that they have to come back to you again before they do so. And during this time, it might be 10 years from now, 5 years from now, there might be advances that allow these situations to be downgraded. And you people are standing in front, and we have to depend on you protecting us with regard to these highly toxic things. And that's the only thing. I'm not accusing the U of R of doing anything wrong. In fact, I know that the country has to do these sorts of things. But it's you that has to make sure that they're done in a way that minimizes the problem.
Thank you, Bob. Are those the articles?
Yes.
Great, thank you. We'll have those submitted as part of the public record. While we're talking about that, if I can just ask the university, I know many of the slides in the PowerPoint are included in the environmental impact statement, but will you be, and I guess I would ask you, to submit the entire PowerPoint as part of the record of the public hearing?
We can certainly do that. And also, I was going to mention this before, if anybody wants to see the supplemental draft environmental impact statement, it's on the town website with a link to the university, and the PowerPoint has also now been added to that website.
Thank you, Tom. And it is It is in the back of the room, although the exhibits are on a thumb drive, so you won't be able to read that if you're here in the room. And it is also available in the town clerk's office for review during normal business hours. We certainly want to make sure people know that, but probably, as you said, the easiest is to look at it online. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? Ed?
Good evening. My name is Ed Baranovich. I live at 1180 Crittenden Road. I've lived here for about 26 years. I just want to give you a little background. I know for some of you, you've heard it before. Over the years, I've lived through multiple flooding events. Over the years, I've met with Tim Keefe, the town engineers, Monroe County engineers, regarding the flooding and the water flow that builds up in the backyards at several homes on the north side of Crittenden, immediately before the railroad embankment and culvert. This flow is due to several sources, including properties on the university property. Improvements on Crittenden by the county to redirect road drainage, I think about 10 years ago now, where they've redirected it to the other side of the embankments on Furlong, have certainly made a difference. So how is this area impacted? How this area is impacted by the U of R's, from what I see, is primarily due to the Whipple Park development. And I'm just saying specifically U of R. I know there's other properties as well. So that's the drainage that flows into Furlong. But also due to the major drainage pond or wetland area, we're affected by that as well during greater events, because it does come over where they're showing the berm. It does cause an inconvenience several times during the year, and so be it. But also the concern is beyond that, is when you have these major events, the amount of water that comes in now, that starts threatening more property damage. So that's the concern of the people in this area, myself. So with all that said, I'd like to commend the U of R, the town of Brighton, the engineers in taking this seriously, and the contracted engineers as well that worked on this, and their diligence in taking this seriously and providing the solution. I think it makes a lot of sense. I believe it'll be beneficial for the events that occur throughout the year, and also because it'll take the load off of Furlong. Also for the significant events, they're planned for the exit to be on the other side of the railroad embankment, and then create a path to Furlong. I think it'll not only benefit Crittenden Road residents, but also those on Norman Road, because they experience flooding from this area. So it kind of balances, I'll say, the load between both ends of the neighborhood. So I think that's good. So I thank you for the work that has occurred on this. I greatly appreciate it. I have just 3 requests. Before adding anything, I don't think the building you're proposing on the north side would affect drainage there. So I'm not speaking about that building, but before adding anything to this area, we should really do these improvements to the wetlands and then to Furlong, just to make sure it works properly, things get handled properly, and if you have to make any changes, we can make it before adding much more flow to the area. The other thing I would highly encourage you in is, I don't think anybody has looked at the power towers in that wetland area. The concrete bases of those towers are below water. What that means is the steel on the towers is corroding. I've seen it. That's an issue. You start corroding the base of a tower over time, it can come down. When I asked the utilities about what would you do, he goes, we'd come right through with bulldozers. We would not care where the water would go, because we'd have to get that power back up. So my concern is no one has studied those towers, and it may be something as simple as assessing their integrity and providing corrosion protection, but I think that should be included, especially if you put more water in. And then lastly, I just want, I haven't reviewed it in depth, but the southern part of the property was originally zoned as low-density residential. You're backing to residential properties, so please keep an eye on the height of the buildings, the light pollution that's going to go in from parking lots into people's backyards that they don't experience today, noise, etc. I just ask that you really think through that development when you put it in, just to not affect the character of the neighborhood on the other side. So that's it. Any questions, points of clarification, or?
Ed, when you ask about these power towers, where are they located on the, you say they're in the wetlands?
Yeah, they're in the,
Maybe with the laser pointer,
Yeah,
you can show them.
yeah, they're right in that area there. And they go along the stretch of the path. So, but there's probably, I think, 3 or 4 that are underwater in different times of the
So those
year.
are RG&E transmission towers, is it?
I think they're not RG&E, but the other one, Niagara Mohawk? Are they not? NIMOS, okay, there we go.
Thanks, sir.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Come on up.
My name is David Kuhn. I live at 260 Sunnyside Drive, and I attended the meeting last Wednesday, and I was a little bit caught off guard by a response that was made on the fire service side. One of the representatives of the U of R said they didn't take very much fire service in that area, and according to the supplemental that was printed, fire alarms at last year were 99, and fire investigations were 4, and medical assistance calls were 6. When I was chief of the fire department in 2009, the fire department had calls of approximately 689 calls for the entire area. So to me, the amount of calls that you're responding to represents a relatively large share of the calls responding in that general area. So I would ask that you consider some type of mitigation in that general area. And the other thing is, most of the residentials that you're putting in, of course, most of the fire alarms came from the residential areas. You may want to make sure you consider putting automatic fire sprinklers in, because that would reduce the problems going forward, because you'd actually have a rapid response with fire sprinklers, and would take care of the problem very, very quickly and possibly reduce the number of false alarms that occur over there. Other than that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Jim?
Hi, I'm Jim Hooper. Jim Hooper, I live at 191 Bastion Road in West Brighton, and I was present at the neighborhood meeting last week that the university hosted, and was present some 7 years ago during the last hearing on the university's plans. You can tell from the tone of the room tonight, things have shifted. It was a very dramatic time, and over these years I see some significant improvements in the university's plans. I'll repeat something I said at the neighborhood meeting, both a compliment and a missed opportunity. There has been thorough reporting on their website that was mentioned earlier of each and every one of the testimonies that were given by the neighbors as well as others, and a rather thorough indexed way of answering each of the questions. So I found that a very high standard. What was the missed opportunity? Well, we thought 600 pages was a lot 7 years ago. Well, we're up to 1,500 pages now. So what's the missed opportunity when you're being so thorough? It's not enough time. I understand the plan was sent to the town around February 20th. A letter was addressed to the neighbors on February 28th and was not received until March 15th, 5 days before the meeting, 12 days before tonight. I don't know what the reason is. I appreciate the university acknowledging that was inadequate. We haven't really had the opportunity to look at the material. I understand April 11th is a deadline, but again, I'll remind you, 1,500 pages. of responses, comments, and the new 999-page draft is a very short amount of time to expect people to really digest the material. If you're not interested in traffic, I think that eliminates about 3/4 of it, but still, it's hundreds of pages. So in terms of process, I think that's a missed opportunity. I don't know whether there's some building season coming up people are rushing toward, but when you present a 25-year plan, give us more time. Let me jump to a positive. I think the university as an entity can be a very good neighbor. Universities often, as this one does, respects the appearance of the campus. That's why I'm particularly pleased at one change, and that was the recognition of the work of the biologists who thoroughly inventoried the old-growth forest on the university land, and it looks wholeheartedly embraced in the shift that's been made since 7 years ago to today to protect those areas, and I think that's a tremendous thing. I mentioned 500 pages of comments and responses. Well, one was a comment I made about the buffer. I suggested some 7 years ago that they begin the buffer planting now. Why wait? You're not going to build in 100 feet from the properties. You heard Ed talk about parking lots being lit right near the backyards of Crittenden Road. And the response was fairly clear. It said, yes, after the rezoning, we'll put in buffer plantings. And I'd really encourage that to happen. I hope not just where it was indicated tonight, near where the immediate building will take place, because it's going to take a while for that to grow. Not just there, but again, this area near Crittenden Road where the parking lots would be, why not put those plantings in now, whether the building is in 5, 10, 15, 20, or 25 years. You know how long it takes trees to grow. I noted that both the stormwater management, which was my primary issue 7 years ago, and the drainage plan have both been expanded. I'm very encouraged by the specific improvements that have been cited, and I am pleased about that. The final area I wanted to address is what I think is a broad question that's remaining. Given the scale of the university and its ever-growing size, what is its responsibility to the community? And I'm going to touch on some areas that I know the town has dealt with numerous tax-exempt parties. But it's interesting that in this current political era we're in, New York State is taking steps that are forcing villages to dissolve in order to reduce layers of overlapping services. This is a tone today. And perhaps without a lot of ability to do otherwise, the university is actually taking us in the opposite direction. They become a jurisdiction, if you will, if you look at the services. That fractures the ability of the town and the school district and the fire protection to create a unified public solution. So I'd like to comment on that. The school is Rush Henrietta, not Brighton. I'd like to ask for the Whipple Park Living Center what the number of children is currently that are enrolled in the public school, Rush Henrietta. We need to bear in mind that number and what it's likely to be in the future at Whipple Park, and what it's likely to be if and when that housing is opened up not to just university students but families. Isn't it interesting that universities hike tuition well beyond inflation, but house children that go to free in our schools, paid for the residents in West Brighton and the rest of the Rush Henrietta district. So it's something to take seriously. Police is interesting. The university has converted security force to peace officers and expanded its size. So they're doing their own. And at the risk of sounding, well, you know, I'm going to acknowledge that the university is the leading employer in the county, but as it takes up its responsibility for safety, people need to recognize, and this may be my only opportunity to say it, that the community is left to figure out how, with the town who provides our police services, how to take these 7 different neighborhoods that are spread between 2 colleges, Brightwoods Lane over on one side of MCC, and the rest of us split up as the university's in the center. We have neighborhoods to the southwest and to the east. How to, you know, and this is for Chief Henderson to figure out how to do that. And I got word from someone today about a different university in a different city, and a question came up about the level of cooperation required between the policing at the university and the policing at the town. For example, if the town needs to investigate a crime that, let's say, is occurring in my neighborhood, what is the cooperative agreement for the town to go onto university property and investigate that crime?
Sure.
Actually, I was part of the original committee that met with the university president that talked about changing from a public security staff to a peace officer status. We currently have a memorandum of understanding that states that the Brighton Police Department has primary law enforcement jurisdiction over all major felony cases in the Brighton jurisdiction. He is now Chief Mark Fisher, comes to the university from the state police. He was a major and ultimately an inspector. He has a law enforcement background. Our MOU is revocable at any time. If we discover that there's a problem with communication, if we feel that they're not sharing pertinent information, I, as the Chief of Police, can revoke that MOU, and then we maintain and take over primary jurisdiction. We are working through some minor challenges. We've got very good communication. We have a meeting scheduled, we have to schedule it yet, where we're going to look to see how this transition is going. I think it was Louise who had asked about how many calls for service the police department has responded to in this part of the university. There were not a lot as it compared to Brighton overall, West Brighton specific. The ones that we did respond to were a number of alarms where we jointly responded with public safety staff. I don't see that changing in the future. I think our memorandum of understanding addresses the concerns that you speak of, and I can assure you, from my time here as your chief, we have great interagency cooperation. We train for the worst. We train together, and I think we're prepared should something happen.
Thank you. So that ties, along with safety, to a final area of university responsibility to the community, and that is fire. As Mr. Kuhn mentioned earlier, the numbers even today, or using their latest year, which is 2012, appear to us to account for over 10% of all of our calls. So I would differ with Mr. Pfeiffer's comment last week that it's small. I think 10% is not small. And I would say that, a good percent, we've been studying our fire department extensively in the last few years, and I would be confident to say a good percent of the fire calls are to auto accidents. And while those automobiles are not owned by the university, they of course produce a large share of the traffic in the area. So the impacts are there, and that's the the point I'm trying to land on. It's important for us, in the situation we're in, sharing so much land with so many tax-exempt properties, which the town knows all too well, the challenges that face. I just would summarize by saying the government pays for the new roads, they fund the fire services, they pay for the public education, and the university has no legal obligation for any of these. So I don't want to act as if they didn't comment on this in their questions and answers. They talked, for example, in terms of on page 47 of the responses, they talk about contributing a proportionate amount of resources to meet minimum emergency response services for an institutional development. And I would encourage the university to be generous in that, again, for the reasons I've stated. Their impacts go far beyond their buildings. We know from jumping back to the fire example, we know from our experience with MCC housing that it's the obligation of the local fire department by law to respond to every alarm from a dorm, and housing on campuses are not immune to smoke from local cooking and other causes for alarms and calling out the fire department. So I just would close with the same sentiment that I gave 7 years ago, that it is not for us living in West Brighton or for the Brighton community in general to become a part of the university, but rather for the university to become part of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address this public hearing? Again, I would note, as has been noted, that written comments may be submitted at any time up to 5 p.m. April 11, 2014, either by email to the town clerk, Daniel, 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 Amon, A-M-A-N, at townofbrighton.org, by mail, postmarked on or before the 11th, or in person to the town clerk, again, on or before 5 p.m. on April 11, 2014. So anybody either here or watching may submit.
Supervisor, if I may, I did actually receive one correspondence from a resident who had asked me to read this as she was unable to attend.
Great. And of course, you'll submit it into the record as well.
And this will be as part of the record, yes. It's from Patricia Love, 163 Helen Road. And Patricia writes, Dear Town of Brighton leaders, I regret that I cannot attend tonight's very important meeting until at least 9 due to a previously scheduled board commitment for which I am board chair. I hope that my letter will carry the weight that my actual presence would have. I live at 163 Helen Road in the Westfall Heights neighborhood and likely have the house most susceptible to the flooding of Red Creek, much of my house and property being within the floodplain. My concerns are related to my experiences with flooding that already occurs, my concerns about already poor water quality in the creek, and are based on my professional training in permaculture ecological design, as well as being informed by a regular and intimate connection with the land and water in question. I spend many hours each week walking throughout the neighborhood and into the U of R property covered by this request. I respectfully ask that you decline or delay the U of R's proposals for 3 main reasons. Point 1, the watershed in this region is not currently stable enough nor well managed enough to risk adding an additional water load to the streams and wetlands. On March 13th, the day after the recent blizzard and well before the melt-off of 15 inches of blizzard snow began, I awoke to a rising Red Creek. Before the end of the day, I had at least 2 feet of water in my backyard with as much as 13 inches just off the corner of my garage. Of course, this water froze over and the ice lingered for several days. That amount of water by far exceeds the highest level of flooding I have seen in my nearly 3 years living there and goes beyond the high water mark the previous owner for 3 years had indicated to me. One neighbor who has lived nearby for 28 years indicated that he believes he has seen the water that high only 6 other times since he has lived in the neighborhood. Again, that was before the blizzard snows had melted. The flooding was mostly relieved the following day, only after I called the folks at RG&E who manage the Court Street Dam. They released some water and the creek went back to its usual high point within the banks over the next few days. I spoke with Hugh Ives at RG&E's Hydro Division. He explained that their gauges on the canal and the river were within range. He didn't seem to be aware the way that Red Creek flows into the canal just east of the Genesee. He sent some of his team over to my property to witness the flooding and to learn about the surrounding watershed and the flow of the creek into the canal. Had I not had the courage to call up and speak for my concerns about the rising water, as many folks would not, I wonder what the outcome would have been. Until the many entities involved in managing this watershed of Red Creek, its tributaries, the canal, and the river can work seamlessly together and understand the system, it doesn't make sense to create even more runoff by cutting down trees and other thirsty plants, building even more hardscaping, and paving over topsoil. Good drainage plan or not, that water has to go somewhere and also be well managed in the process. We're not there yet. Point 2. This request is out of sequence with the other plans currently being updated. The town of Brighton is currently updating its comprehensive plan, which I understand will be completed later in 2014. It makes sense that given the master plan will soon be complete, a project as significant as the U of R's request should wait to be checked against the town's updated master plan to see if it is in alignment. The City of Rochester is currently updating its local waterfront revitalization plan. I have recently begun participating in the focus groups related to this plan. This LWRP impacts areas directly adjacent to the U of R South Campus and areas surrounding the Westfall Heights neighborhood. Certainly the plans arriving from the update of that LWRP can significantly impact the Red Creek watershed. We need to understand before adding more stress to the watershed. I noticed that the town of Brighton doesn't have an LWRP, but perhaps we should. I am waiting to hear back from the Department of State, which I called today, to learn if Red Creek is eligible. Next point is, if I understood Town Engineer Mike Guyon correctly, Red Creek is already on the watch list related to its poor water quality. I regret that I haven't had time to explore that yet to be able to make an intelligent assessment or comment, but certainly that bears consideration. It is common sense to allow these other plans to be completed before considering U of R's request. Point 3. There hasn't been enough time to review the 2,000 pages of information related to this project. Only 9 days ago, on March 17th, Westfall Heights Neighborhood Association President Jim Hooper shared with our neighborhood email list the wealth of information in the SDGEIS. I received the invitation to U of R's 319 information meeting and notice about this town meeting in the mail on 317. 2 days notice for the information meeting and then 9 days notice for this meeting is not enough time to make an informed response to all these pages of information. While some folks have lived in the neighborhood for 2 or 3 decades, many of us have not and are thus newly receiving this information. I wasn't able to attend either of the earlier meetings due to previous commitments. In closing, as many folks have learned the hard way, cleaning up environmental issues is far more painful, time-consuming, and expensive than simply acting carefully to present them in the first place. Please postpone the rezoning decision and other approvals until we can be certain that our fragile and important ecosystem won't be irreparably damaged.
Thank you, Dan, and again, we'll submit that hard copy into the record. Any further questions or comments from the audience? Any questions or comments from members of the town board?
I appreciate the input from our residents and citizens. That's great. Thank you for coming. Really. Good presentation.
Luis?
I have a couple of things. I would ask that, you have said this is going to be a 25 to 30 year and perhaps up to 50 years of time span that all this building is going to go on. I would ask that now, the very first thing you do before you do anything is to put in the buffer, put in the trees all around the existing homes, especially behind Southland, but along the whole, wherever you're going to be impacting homes. If you put them in now, in 25 or 30 years, they'll be tall. They'll be a real buffer. Don't wait until you do any of the building. The second thing is, instead of telling us how many feet tall the buildings are going to be, I would rather that you put somewhere how many stories they will be, because I am deficient that way. When somebody talks to me about it's 10 feet away or it's this or this, I can't picture what it is. And if you tell me that there's going to be a 4-story building behind my house, I will be very upset. But if you tell me there'll be a 2-story building, it'll be a little bit easier to take. I think that one way that would make it easier on the existing homes is that you don't have a building any taller than the home that it's behind. If they're all ranch houses, I don't remember if they are or not, but if they're all ranch houses and you have 4-story buildings with parking lots, it's going to be much more invasive than if you have a 2-story building behind a ranch. If they have 2- and 3-story homes there, then a 2- or 3-story building further away would be, in my opinion, would be better. I think that Bob Levine had a very good point about what will be done in the research labs. What kind of research are they going to do? You probably don't know now, and I know that research depends on grants and the type of grants they get from the government and other entities, but there probably should be a mechanism in place from the town's point of view that you and the town can discuss what kind of research is going to be done in the labs, so that it will ease at least the people's position who live near there. Accidents do happen. I know that they have better filtration systems than they used to with the air and what's going on in the buildings. My husband's a scientist. He's talked to me about it. And he says, don't worry about it, but people worry about it. And so I think that there has to be a constant communication between the university research labs and the town. And the last thing, what Jim Hooper talked about was the tax situation. I know that universities are tax exempt. I know that the university has agreed in the past to some pilots, but pilots usually don't include the school taxes. And what he has talked about is really a problem for the school systems. There's a lot of children that aren't where the homes are not paying their fair share. And I don't know if we can work out a pilot that includes schools. Of course, then you would just be fully taxed, but which is okay with me, but it's not how it goes. But there's got to be some kind of an understanding so that it's more equitable for the citizens who are connected with the university and the town people. Those are my comments.
Thanks, Louise.
Just another comment along the lines of sight lines. I've seen before in different developments, I didn't see it in here, and I apologize if it was and I missed it, but you've seen computer simulations of sight lines where perhaps a 60-foot building, you'll see a balloon or some object from a distance. So, and I'm wondering if there's a way to include an analysis, particularly from the residential areas along Southland Drive, Norman Road, Crittenden Road, as far as the heights of the buildings proposed, along with the buffer, the tree line, and then to see how much of it would be visible from those residential areas. I think that would be helpful in order to determine the impact of those site distances for people to look at those. Also, I know that the university has updated its master plan, and I know that this is a generic environmental impact statement that we're dealing with. We don't have specific uses. But do we have an idea as to, now that the university has reviewed its master plan, what type of residential developments are being proposed for the South Campus? Is it apartment-style housing for graduate students, much like what's at Whipple Park already? Or are we talking long hallway-type dormitories for freshmen and other undergraduates? I think that would be helpful as well.
And along the lines here, I've let my colleagues go first as well, but one of the other amenities you've suggested is the drainage improvements in the area, and some suggestion is that perhaps Whipple Park is exacerbating historic drainage problems along Crittenden and elsewhere. And be interested in when those drainage amenities would be put into place, particularly insofar as they may be working to mitigate the problem that's caused by Whipple Park itself, if in fact that is the case. Also, I note that in your statement that the residential space would increase from currently 338,000 to 815,000 square feet. That to me would necessarily impact the school system, and I don't see much of anything in here on the school system. And just at a meeting last night out of Rush Henrietta, I know Ken Graham, the superintendent there, shared with us that it's about $19,000 per student is the cost of educating kids in the Rush Henrietta district there. That would have a significant impact and make a clear difference to me. I agree that we should start the buffer zone as soon as possible to get those trees up, and I also strongly agree as well that it'd be helpful. We've seen other proposals that have elevations of what the buildings will look like from different vantage points. That those sight lines would be very helpful, Jason. That's a very good suggestion. One other concern I have, and I know in the amendments on page 86, you have made a reference to the impact on other commercial facilities. The fact is that, as you've noted, the university has more than doubled, or approximately doubled their tenant space in the community to now 700,000 square feet of tenanted space with university occupants. Indication, but it's somewhat conclusory here or general, that the university doesn't really intend to vacate that tenanted space. But there are other empty offices in Brighton and in Rochester in general. Of some concern, if the university is going to start building their own, will there be a relocation and what the impact might be on the rest of the community? With a bit more in the way of specifics, although the thought in your comments here is that you were thinking to decompress the main campus somewhat, so therefore that might actually expand the university's demand for their own space without vacating any of the space already occupied elsewhere in the town. And I share with my colleagues a real concern about the amount of tax-exempt space here in town. We're already at about 24%, I understand. Our town does not have, certainly don't have the tax base that Henrietta does, where they can afford, through their commercial space and taxation there, that very high investment in their school children. But yet we make that same sort of investment here, but all on the tax bills of our residents. We are mostly a residential community. And the university has always been a good neighbor, and I expect they're going to continue to be, but part of being a good neighbor is contributing to the community. Certainly the university contributes in huge part by their jobs that they provide. But at the same time, they're using our services, and we need a contribution by the university to help support our services. Thanks.
Obviously, as we have noted, written comments will be accepted through April 11th, and I would anticipate there will be some further written comments from the town. And as you well know, hopefully the fruition of the discussions that we have had concerning financial support to the services in the town, including fire, including school, which are all extremely important, and I'll acknowledge that the university has, been working with us in good faith to come to a meeting of the minds on that point. A couple of things, though, that I just want to address that either heard tonight or maybe heard the other night, Wednesday night. Last Wednesday night at the neighborhood meeting, we heard for the first time a potential 50-year build-out time frame. Tonight I heard again the 20, 25, 30 years, and just a clarification going forward as to whether in fact the timeline potential has in fact changed, what the actual likely timeline is going to be. In talking about, second point, in talking about one of the amenities tonight, the emergency water release, if the berm, if there was too much water going there, it was referenced, I think the word across the trail was used, and I wanted to clarify that that emergency is going to be under the trail. Thank you. The issue of the mailing, which first came to light at the neighborhood meeting last Wednesday night, and I appreciate at that time, that the university was just becoming aware that that was an issue. I don't know whether you had heard about it before the meeting, whether you had gotten any calls, or whether you were just hearing it for the first time there. But I am concerned that did take a couple of weeks out of what, yes, it was up on the university's webpage, and there's a link to it from the town. But obviously there was a couple of weeks delay before a lot of the residents of the town and of the neighbors of the university were aware of it. I'm curious as to whether you've learned any more about what happened. I know we've got the 2 weeks, and frankly, we did get some comments tonight. I don't know whether the relative, as opposed to at earlier stages of the review of this proposed project many years ago, there were a lot more people. I think part of that, we know that we heard from the people that were here tonight, the appreciation of the work that the university has done, particularly relating to drainage issues. But I do wonder whether in part, whether the relatively small crowd was due to people just not having had time to really review what is a very large document. And we would continue to be within the seeker mandated review process, I believe, if we held this hearing open. But I'm interested in if we held it open and continued it on April 9th. And maybe I'm wrong on that timeline, but I'm interested in the university's reaction, and specifically reaction to the mail snafu. Jose, thank you.
Jose Fernandez with the University of Rochester. We looked into it. I signed. Again, these are the meeting that we gave was a voluntary meeting, not required by the seeker process. I signed the letters, and then they were folded, which took about 2.5 days. They were sent to our mailing department, and we're not sure what happened. Part of it, we're told, is because of the snow events that occurred. There was a little bit of got lost within the department, and it took a few extra days to get out. We don't have a real detailed explanation, but it did take about an extra week.
Well, I appreciate that. The April 11th date is longer than would be necessarily required. If we do hold a public hearing, which we have, we would be obligated to hold the written comment period open for 10 days. In fact, the written comment period will be open, I think that's 17 days, 16, 17 days, so there is additional time beyond that would otherwise be required. My inclination then is that we do close the public hearing as we would have anticipated, with that 2 weeks plus period that the public will have to submit further written comments. And I think I would note again, and it was mentioned during the university's presentation, there will be additional public hearings in the substantive rezoning portion of this review process, which occurs after the seeker review is completed. The seeker review, the environmental review, is extremely important. It's an opportunity to really examine, drill deep, if you will, into the environmental issues. And that's a broad term. You've heard us talk about tax issues. You've heard us talk about potential impact on existing office space in town, drainage and other issues. So environmental is a term that is very broadly applied for purposes of seeker. But I think it is important to note that when we do, assuming we complete the seeker process successfully and get into the actual substantive rezoning of the project of this land, there will again be the opportunity for formal public input through a public hearing process at that stage, where substantive issues, including again issues of incentives and amenities and their respective value to the community, can and no doubt will be and should be discussed. So it's my inclination, unless the board feels strongly that that we will close this public hearing, the seeker public hearing, the public hearing on the supplemental draft generic environmental impact statement.
What, the questions or the points that I brought up, when do we get the answers?
Well, they will be, as Tom mentioned, they will be included in the transcript of the public hearing. They will be sent to the university, and as the university prepares that, I don't want to call it first draft because obviously we've been through several drafts, but when they begin the development of the final environmental impact statement, which is completed by the town, just as we reviewed all of the questions and answers from several years ago when we were at an earlier stage of this proceeding, they will compile these questions and comments and respond to them. The town will take that and complete a final environmental impact statement, but there will also then be a finding statement that is prepared that will address issues such as mitigation. So they will be formally, as part of the record noted, they will formally be addressed as part of the final environmental impact statement development process. And to a certain extent, they may come up again in the substantive review of the proposed rezoning itself. Hearing nothing further, I will just ask one more time, is there anyone else, either in the audience or here on the board, that has any comments for the public hearing?
I'd just like to say, again, you're conducting your affairs in a good neighbor way, and we are expecting and hopeful that you're going to continue that. And you heard from some of the residents there, and I think one of the points that Louise brought up, you could get started on the buffering sooner than later. And I think it would go a long way towards demonstrating your good faith with the neighbors and your plan for the university, which we're looking forward to more information in that regard.
Then if there are no further comments, I hereby declare this public hearing to be closed. Again, one last time, written comments will be received through any of the email, person, or mail through April 11, 2014 at 5 p.m. to the town clerk's office. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll now continue with the agenda. Communications. Can I have a motion to receive and file the communications?
Bill, I move we receive and file the communications that we've received.
Second.
We have a couple of annual reports. The annual report of the Conservation Board, which is part of their statutory directive under our town code. We also have the annual report of the Brighton Town Court, Judges Karen Morris and John Falk. We have the formal redesignation from the National Arbor Day Foundation that Brighton is once again a Tree City, USA. That's been a very important part of the fabric of our community. People that come to Brighton comment on our canopy. It's something we take pride in. It's something we work to maintain. We also, well, we've been a Tree City for over a decade now.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, so, okay, we have a motion to receive and file all of the communications, those and others. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio? Councilmember Warner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Committee reports. Louise, Parks and Recreation.
Yes, the Parks and Recreation Community Services Committee met last Monday, 3 days ago, and there was a lot going on at that meeting. Our town engineer talked about the new signage kiosks, that concept that we have to work out for the Highland Trail, and he had some pictures for us to look at and give our opinion on how they would fit in with what we had in mind for the trails. The board stressed that we wanted uniformity in the Brighton signs so that so bikers and walkers would know when they were on a Brighton trail, and that all this information was taken back with Mike. The president of the Brighton Chamber of Commerce presented a proposal for a beautification project that they would like to sponsor at the 12 Corners Triangle Park for the bicentennial. And they showed us some concept pictures, which were very impressive, that would bring some more benches out of brick and walls and have everything, seating and walkways would integrate the whole area around the pergola. And that will be talked about further and be brought to the town board at a future town board meeting. The facilities at the lodges and fields will open up at the end of April. Mowing contract for the season has been finalized, and seasonal workers will begin in May. Final bid has been chosen for the trail system on the Elmwood Avenue Farish Park, and this trail will enable people to go from here all the way down to Buckland Park. They're going to they hope to start this year on that project. Becky Cotter announced that plans for Memorial Day ceremony at the Veterans Memorial will be on Monday, November 26th, and the plans have been finalized. She also announced the outdoor concert series for this year. Summertime has been finalized, and the programs will be announced in the next bulletin. Matt Beeman has prepared a special use event application for the use for the town parks, and that has been finalized, and it's a great document that he came up with. The Brighton Senior Program is quite busy, and if you want to see what the schedule are, I believe you can go online and see it. They have something going every week twice a week, I believe. And it's at, just go onto the Town of Brighton website and go to the Recreation Department. Next meeting will be on the 21st, 27th, 28th. I knew it was there. It was towards the end of the month.
Whatever.
I don't have my calendar here. The 28th of April at 4:30 at Brookside, and the public is welcome.
Thanks, Louise. We did appreciate the chamber coming in. The chamber had previously come in and spoken with the Public Works Committee. I had some conversations with town staff after that meeting. We've talked about getting our, as you said, and rightly so, it's important we want the public to see a little more of this project before we make any final decisions, and we're going to make sure that the community is aware of the potential project. We also talked about, we have a number of landscape architects that serve on our volunteer boards, and we thought it would make sense to get some of their particular expertise to make sure we have as polished a project as possible when we do, and when the chamber really does present it formally to the town board. So that's something we'll be working on. But as always, a good meeting, and covered a lot of territory this month. Thank you. Chris, Finance.
Finance met Bill on March 18th, last Tuesday. All matters discussed are on tonight's agenda, with the exception only of several matters that were there only for discussion purposes. Some equipment repair items that we need to find funding for, and some large pieces of equipment and replacement. Also the Penflex report, which was one of the communications we accepted earlier, and again, Suzanne Zasso continues to work on the charge and credit card use policy, and we've referred that out to our independent auditors for their comments as well. The next meeting of the Finance Committee will be April 1st, Tuesday at 3:30 in the Stage Conference Room, and the public is encouraged to attend.
Thanks, Chris. Jason, Public Safety.
Yes, the Public Safety Committee has not met since our last town board meeting. Our next regularly scheduled meeting is for Tuesday, April 8th. We made it 8 o'clock in the morning in the lower level community meeting room, and the public is invited to attend.
Thank you. Jim, Public Works.
The Public Works Committee has not met since the last meeting. Our next scheduled meeting is Monday, April 7th at 9 a.m. in the lower level community meeting room, and the public is invited, as we've stated, for all of our committees.
Thank you very much. We have no old business, new business. Chris, reading and approval of claims.
Bill, I've reviewed claims totaling $637,701.18. I find them to be in order. Some of the noteworthy claims are salt. Tim, you keep using up salt. $31,000. Can we hope that for some relief in that?
Maybe by July.
But I understand you'd be complimented and purchasing wisely this year, so sad that we had to use so much of it. The loader skid steer, our new loader skid steer, was purchased at a total cost for a brand new piece of equipment of $9,000 after our trade-in. A nice job in pursuing that as well, Tim. Monroe County Electric and Gas, our contribution this year to that joint expenditure is $64,000. So it's a large item in our budget. And we had to refund $1,300 to the state of New York, apparently sent to the wrong town of Brighton. That was only particularly interesting to me because I didn't know there was another one, but there is another one up in the Adirondacks.
Franklin County.
We did not want to take what wasn't ours, and we sent it back. But with all of those, the claims appear to be in order, and I move that they be approved for payment.
Second.
Discussion?
I actually met town board members from the other town of Brighton at the Association of Towns Conference 2 years ago.
Is that right?
Yes, we had Town of Brighton on our name tags that were given to us.
I've been very close to the other town of Brighton, but it's up near Saranac Lake.
Yeah, it's up in the east.
And I understand it's a lovely town, and I hope they like their $1,300.
Yeah, use it wisely.
Any further discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio? Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Jim?
The next item is the authorization of a bid award to execute an agreement with Pro Construction Company to provide services for a town sidewalk removal and replacement program. I move in the resolution. It's prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Discussion? Tim?
Bill, this is an annual program we've had in place for just about the last 20 years, actually. We go out and we do sidewalk maintenance and repairs in our districts, as well as some of the town at-large sidewalks. The accounting is kept separate, so the charges are done accordingly. And I believe Pro Construction is the same outfit we had last year, and they do a nice job, and it's within the amount budgeted for this work this year.
And this is for the districts?
Districts and, general town sidewalks as well. And as I said, we keep those costs separately so we can track them and appropriate the charges to the correct accounts.
Okay. Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Jason?
Yes, the next matter is for approval to declare one police department vehicle as surplus and authorize disposal through the municipal equipment auction process. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Chris?
Bill, the next item is approval to accept a grant award in the amount of $4,513.44 from the Justice Court Assistance Program with authorization to appropriate funds into the associated budget account to support the same. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney for the town.
Second.
Bill, this relates to the new walk-through metal detector, and that's been acquired by the Justice Court there.
And this was a grant that we previously and recently authorized. They were able to take advantage of this on pretty short notice, actually after the grant application deadline had expired. And kudos to court clerk, our administrative court clerk, Dee Burdette, who, upon becoming aware of the issue, made some inquiries, was able to convince the Justice Court Assistance Program to accept this application, and so we now are going to have this equipment. So good work next door.
And then part of our discussion at FASC was what will the court do with the old metal detector? And whether or not there's another municipality that can use it or another department, I'm not sure, but they're going to report back on it.
If there is, yeah, right, they'll report back. If there is, we'll surplus it and transfer it out. Okay, we have motion and a second. Anything further? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Louise?
The next matter is to authorize the supervisor to execute an agreement with Young Explosives to provide the fireworks display for the 2014 July 4th celebration. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
As always, we will offset much of the 4th of July costs, not just the fireworks, but some of the other costs, through the generosity of a lot of our business owners and residents, and we appreciate that very much. And we always appreciate the opportunity to have a little fun on the 4th of July, especially this year with some extra bicentennial activities. So we're really looking forward and hoping that the community will come out, not just for the fireworks, but for a great day of family fun. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. And just on that again, kudos to our park superintendent, Matt Beeman, who does coordinate our 4th of July activities. Jim?
Next item is to appoint a particular person as a marriage officer within the town of Brighton for the year 2014. The person is Sandy Frankel.
That's no particular person, that's a special person.
Special
Yes.
person.
She is a particular person.
False. You know her better.
Yes, I do. So, I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye, and that it is important to note that is pursuant to provisions of the domestic relations law. The town will not be paying a salary to Sandy as a marriage officer, nor does the town pay a salary to the existing marriage officers. So, next, Chris.
Bill, the next item is to authorize the execution of an amended retainer agreement with the Davidson Fink office for legal services. I move that we approve, or that we adopt, the resolution as prepared by the attorney for the town.
Second.
Bill, this is just a slight increase in Tom Fink's hourly rate. I understand it's just $10 per hour. It's been several years, 2 or
3 years.
3 years since there's been any increase.
Less than a 5% increase now, and it's been 3 years. So
it's a very modest increase, and I think well warranted.
And our, to their credit, they primarily handle our real property tax certiorari work, the challenges to our assessments, and the volume of those lawsuits has come down dramatically over the last few years. We've had a couple trials, we've had some settle, and frankly, we've had some simply, I think, through the thoroughness of the preparation and the thoroughness of which our case has been presented, a number of plaintiffs have simply walked away, started lawsuits, and then changed their mind. So I do think we've got good performance from the Davidson Fink office. We have a motion and a second. Anything further? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. And Chris?
Another matter at the FAST committee was to seek approval to modify the existing table of organization under the information systems by the elimination of the full-time network technician position, also the part-time micro support technician, elimination of a part-time office clerk 3 position, and reduce the work schedule of the current coordinator of data processing from 40 hours to 35 hours per week, effective April 7, 2014. But this all, it has to do with finding other candidates to fill these functions. But I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney for the town.
Second.
Thanks, Chris. Yes, and we will give a few more details on this reorganization of our IT services at our next meeting. If there's no further discussion, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Matters of the supervisor, I will, I guess, give part of the bicentennial report. It looks like the town clerk will also address the bicentennial, and more particularly the retail operation side of the bicentennial. But again, I want to thank Ray Tierney, who was here earlier speaking about our upcoming reenactment on April 5th. We're going to have school kids there. We're going to have people of all. This is a great family event. So I do want to encourage people. There's a limited, very limited supply of tickets left. So please come into the town clerk's office tomorrow to make sure you get your tickets. 11 o'clock, 12:30, I'm sorry, 11:30, 12:30, or 1:30. That's Saturday, April 5th. Also coming up on Sunday, May 4th, will be the Bicentennial Landmark Bus Tour, again in partnership between the town and Historic Brighton. Tickets are also available, again, limited because there's only so many seats on the bus. The bus will go around 3 times. It is a guided tour. We have very experienced docents, including our own historian, Mary Jo Lanphier, who will be talking about the history, the architecture, the famous people that are associated with landmarks throughout the town of Brighton. So that's going to be a fun activity on May 4th, Sunday. And just a reminder also of Friday's activity at the library. Mary Jo Lanphier, town historian's talk on women's history in honor of Women's History Month, 1:30 in the Learning Center at the library. And that's all I have. Matters of the town clerk.
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor. Hadn't planned on saying anything this evening, but since the attorney to the town is out of town this week, he ceded his time to me. So I just wanted to just briefly, I don't know if the cable guys can catch the fabulous bicentennial merchandise over by the podium. I don't see any of the cameras moving, so apparently that's not happening.
They're all over it.
So, but in any case, swing by Town Hall, and there it goes. So you'll get there's T-shirts, the gel bracelets, market totes, and then the great lapel pins that you'll see Chris and Jason and the supervisor all wearing this evening. Although the ones for sale are silver. So great as we look forward to summer and not using any more salt and go out mowing lawns and things. What a better way to go out there and mow your lawn than a Brighton 200 T-shirt. And with that, that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. Matters of the town board.
I've signed up for 11:30 on Saturday the 5th. I hope other people will join me, and I look forward to that reenactment. That sounds it's going to be wonderful.
I'm actually looking forward to town historian Mary Jo Lanphier and I will be in the barn that is also on the Stone Tolan campus, and we'll be talking a little more about history after people go through and see the reenactment. They'll be coming out to the barn. One of the things I'm going to be talking about, you've heard us talk about it before, but Brighton, once upon a time, comprised a large part of the eastern half of Monroe County. And some of the history of those various annexations, which occurred over about a 100-year time period, starting not long after 1814, when we were first founded. So, and also with Mary Jo there, we'll be answering a lot of questions about Brighton's history, and so we're looking forward to it. It's going to be a big day.
So Farmer Bill's going to be out in the barn, huh? Wear your Halloween costume again? Or?
No, I think I'll be Supervisor Bill that day.
Oh, okay.
But I will be, well, we'll see what I'm, on Family Fun Halloween festivities in a few months.
I just want to remind people again, April 26th is going, in the afternoon, will be our pharmaceutical retake or take back program at the police side of Town Hall, and it will be from 12 or 1?
I think
1 to 4. 1 to 4. In the morning will be the parade for Little League, so it was after that we will have it here. Bring all your unused, unwanted, outdated pharmaceutical stuff, pills, medications, whatever you have. And the next week will be clean sweep, and a lot of work has already gone into that. We have all the commitments that we need from everybody, and now we just need to get all of you people coming to Town Hall or to French Road for clean sweep on the 3rd of May. And last but not least is the electronics recycling and the shredding, which will be what's 3 and 8? 3 and 7 is 10, on the 10th of May.
10th.
On the 10th of May at the garage, the Public Works facility off of Elmwood Road. That's it.
You didn't mention as part of the inducement, as if cleaning up our community wasn't enough, you get a free T-shirt
Yes, you
You'll
do.
get breakfast, donuts, bagels, all sorts of breakfast, donuts, bagels, all sorts of good things donated by some of our local business sponsors. And then
Oh,
when
and
you
lunch.
finish working, you can go back over to French Road School and get lunch, also donated by some of our great business sponsors. So
48 subs divided in 6, and we have
Yeah,
the
that's-
dessert platters, and we have,
frankly, I don't know why anybody wouldn't come out
right,
and
that's
participate in Clean Sweep, help clean up this beautiful hometown of Brighton, and
I just thought that
go
people
home with
were
a
tired
T-shirt
of
and
hearing
some-
me say all this, so I, but when you do come, if you are planning to come to Clean Sweep, it would be helpful if you could contact me, or you can sign up online as well, so that we will know how many T-shirts need to be ordered, and how many grabbers we need, and and also the places where you would prefer to go, so that we won't have everybody just at the board at one time trying to decide what they want to do as far as
And they
cleaning
won't be.
up.
We're going to have great traffic flow this year, aren't we, Louise?
We are going to have great traffic
Good.
control, and I can use some volunteers
Do I
for
get-
things.
Do I get to deliver pizzas again?
Yes, I made a chart. I made a chart of all the different pickups that we need.
And subs.
People have to pick up the pizza and the subs and the 6 different things. And so,
Well, thank you for organizing all that, Louise. It's a great event, and
bet it is.
we all look forward to Clean
I'll
Sweep.
be there at
I
7:30 in the morning.
look forward to driving that car. I tell you, it smells so good.
Anything else from the town board? Again, as always, I want to thank our television crew tonight. Thank you for broadcasting us both live on TV and also streaming on the internet. With that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mailing?
Aye. Thank you, everybody, for participating. We'll see you at our next town board meeting, April 9th. Have a good evening.